Hey guys, Ron here, and today I'm with a person some of you may know, but the majority who haven't heard of him probably heard of his music. Actually, you've definitely heard of this wonderful man's creations. Right now, I'm going to interview a very important person, a man who's partially responsible for my love of Pokemon music. Today, I'm here with Mr. Braxton Burks. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ron. Thanks for chatting with me, and I'm super flattered. By the way,
I'm flattered that you accepted. Like I just tweeted out, "Hey, I wanna interview this guy," and he responded right away. Actually,
of course. I mean, you've been following my work for quite some time, and I'm a fan of your work as well.
Thank you. I wonder, maybe you are like one of the first 10 people that I followed on Twitter. I don't know, probably not. I'll find out later. Alright, so now Braxton is the creator of Pokemon Reorchestrated, and his first album, Kanto Symphony, came out a few years ago. Was it 2012? 2012? I should have checked before doing this. Whatever. But it blew up on iTunes and YouTube and among the Pokemon community. Every Pokemon fan film has at least one track from this album, and his music has been used by Poketubers for years. So if you've watched Pokemon videos on YouTube for at least 3 years, you've definitely heard his music. He went on to create other orchestrated Pokemon albums like Double Team and Hoenn Summer, and also that bonus album, but whatever. And now he's in production of his soon-to-be masterpiece, Johto Legends, a complete orchestration of Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, and it's going to be epic, hopefully with your help as well, but we'll talk about that later. So Braxton, you ready for some nostalgia on my part? I mean, you weren't part of this, only your music was. But so I think it probably was around 2012. I think I was sophomore in high school. I was just getting back into Pokemon again. I didn't look up a lot of things online, but one of the first things I did find on YouTube was your Kanto Symphony, and I decided to like put it on my phone. And now this is when I also started walking. And I would just go on an hour of walking through the forest and just listen to the album, and it would be like I'm in the Pokemon world. And that's literally why I started becoming obsessed with the Pokemon music, because of Pokemon Reorchestrated.
Okay, that is super awesome. Actually, when I was writing the album, I would take breaks between working on tracks, or if I just hit, a block. Through one of my arrangements, I would go outside and walk around in my local park, which is basically like Viridian Forest.
Oh my
God. And I would play back some of the stuff I'd written, and I don't know what it was about just being out in nature, but I feel like that helped replenish my creative energy and gave me more inspiration for making the album sound more immersive.
It's the perfect idea. I mean, that's what I would do. What's weird is when I'm walking, I don't think of anything bad. I only think of good things. It's weird. I can't concentrate on something bad while I'm walking. And I've seen actually pictures of you've taken pictures when you're walking in the forest, I think.
Oh my God, yeah, you've seen those.
Yeah, I mean, so, and your forest looks better than mine. Mine looks like Viridian Forest. Yours looks like Eterna Forest or something. But
it's very pretty. You should come to Washington.
I should. Everything in the West Coast looks good, from what I can tell.
It's all green, truly green.
It's all true green. Now, I have a few questions. Now, that's what I think makes this exclusive. And also, at the end of this whole interview, Braxton gave us a little sneak peek to one of the tracks. We'll play that in the end. And he also has previews for his album on his Kickstarter page. You can check that out. I'm gonna leave a link in the description, and I think it's gonna be up throughout the whole video. You can do that now on YouTube, where you leave a Kickstarter link. So now I heard the previews. They're Disney quality. They really are, and I don't want to spoil myself too much while listening to these previews. That's why I don't want to hear, even if you release like Azalea Town or something really epic. I don't want to listen to it. It's just I want to listen to it in its entirety when it comes out. I'll probably go for a walk while I'm doing it for the first time. It'll be really nice.
It will be more magical, I think, that way. But of course, we put out the preview so people who haven't heard my music before understand the scope of the high caliber orchestrations we want to do for Pokemon Gold and Silver.
No, and that's what makes this so amazing. It's 100% professional. This is the most professional thing, and the most professional Pokemon fan work ever that I can think of. But the quality does sound, I'm gonna say, better than your other albums, even though your other albums the quality was perfect. It does sound better. Like, what are you doing differently this time around? In general, also, like maybe like in regards to like the whole process, not just the making the music.
Well, when I started writing Kanto Symphony, or Kanto Symphony, whichever you prefer.
Kanto's technically more correct, but yeah, you can say Kanto too.
When I was writing Kanto Symphony, I didn't have any formal music training. I had mostly just picked up all of my musical knowledge by ear, listening to stuff and playing it back on the piano. I taught myself how to play piano with
which is crazy.
Children's piano books. But I started taking it more seriously in 2011 and started doing Pokemon remixes, orchestrations, and then eventually applied to music school. And by the time Kanto was released, I had just started attending a 4-year music college called Cornish College of the Arts, and I graduated about a year and a half ago. Wow. So I'd say that's probably the biggest improvement you might hear in my music today.
So a whole college education, basically.
A whole college education, orchestration classes, experience working with live players, one-on-one, in ensembles, and learning both the theory behind music and the more professional aspects of handling music projects.
So, like, now technically, what's different compared to other albums that you've made?
For Johto Legends, we're recording with a number of amazingly talented professional musicians who have worked on video game soundtracks. Like I mentioned in the Kickstarter video, we have players who have performed on the Destiny soundtrack, some of the Minecraft expansions, Abzu by music by Austin Wintory, and have actually performed in live concerts like Pokemon Symphonic Evolutions, and some of them are also huge Pokemon and video game fans in general, so it makes their performances feel more authentic, I feel. So for Kanto Symphony, everything was mostly samples, and for those who don't understand what samples are, they're basically virtual instruments, and so I basically wrote that entire album with entirely synthetic instruments, with a few exceptions of solo recordings by some soloists I met on YouTube, actually. Whoa. And all of them huge Pokemon fans, so that was a plus. But samples can sometimes come across as synthetic and artificial sounding because they're sort of pre-recorded notes, and
although you definitely fooled people with Kanto Symphony. A lot of people didn't know that was just on the computer.
There was one review on iTunes that I read was hilarious. It was like, this album's okay. I mean, you could tell, though, it was like a community orchestra or something. And I was like laughing so hard.
That's perfect.
Like, you thought it was bad, but you also thought it was real. So, yeah, that was pretty great. So I'm pretty skilled at making realistic sounding mock-ups, but the one thing that I feel like some of my pieces have lacked in the past is that sense of human emotion and depth that you can only get through a live performance. Okay. Because when you're recording with live musicians, whether it's a large ensemble or even soloists, they're able to process an entire piece of music and churn out a performance that represents the whole piece rather than one note at a time. The samples can't read ahead and figure out, oh, I should, add more of a swell to this phrase, or I should make this sound more melodic and fluid. And samples can come off as almost too precise or too robotic. And with live players, you get this raw emotional expressiveness that really captures the soul and essence of the music they're performing. And I think by adding live musicians to Johto Legends on a much larger scale than we did with Kanto Symphony, we're really going to bring to life the music of Gold and Silver in a really big way.
So now, I mean, it sounds like there's just a lot more on your plate this time. Is it harder this time around?
I'd say for younger, inexperienced Braxton, it would be super chaotic and terrifying. It's a much larger Kickstarter budget that we're aiming for this time. I did a Kickstarter for Kanto before, but that was, I think, for $8,000 to fund recordings, get samples, rewards, all that. This time around, we're aiming for $30,000, which is not just going to cover. It's going to cover recording with all of these professional musicians with high quality recording equipment. But we're also paying for mixing and mastering this time around, which is something I didn't take care to do with Kanto. Mostly because I didn't understand what mixing and mastering is. Basically, it's
how do you make an album? No, but I'm also surprised. How did you make a good album and not know?
Well, I'm flattered. Some sound engineers, though, I think, or audiophiles have messaged me and been like, "Why isn't this track's level consistent with the rest of the album? Why did you do it?" And I'm like,
I'm gonna go back and listen to this to listen to the album. I'm going for like a bike ride today. I'm gonna listen to it while on the bike ride, and I'm gonna try to hear.
I think it's actually the bicycle theme that has different levels than the other tracks.
That's funny.
But yeah, so we're investing more in the post-production side of the album this time, which will hopefully provide a much more polished listening experience. You'll be able to hear the instruments with more clarity. Nice. On the final recording. Everything will have just the right amount of reverb, fully expanded stereo field, so you can just feel like you're totally enveloped in the sound of Johto.
Yeah. What do you think is what's the thing that you're most excited for people to hear in the? Now, this doesn't have to be like a specific track, or it could be like something small, like a specific instrument, or just a little Easter egg. I don't know, something that you're excited for people to hear from this album.
Well, I won't say any Easter eggs because that takes the fun out of the Easter. Yeah, exactly. But I am super excited for people to hear a lot of the traditional Japanese instruments that we're going to use on the album. As you know, playing through Heartgold and Soulsilver, they remastered the soundtrack, and some of those tracks included actual, or I guess sound font Japanese instruments for places like Ecruteak City and Sprout Tower, and basically all of those related areas of the game. And so I'm really excited to see people's reactions to this combination of a giant orchestra sound combined with traditional Japanese folk instruments, to really evoke that Japanese aesthetic from the games, visually speaking and sonically speaking. Thanic.
Well, that's the thing. Now, if you would have done a Johto album back when you're starting out, you wouldn't have been able to use the instruments that you wanted to, like, I don't know, a koto or whatever.
I also, so first of all, I studied a little bit of Japanese music in college and out of college, and I'm more familiar with the instruments and the various scales that are associated.
Oh yeah,
with
that's right.
Japanese music.
Each different culture has different scales that they use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now we're using sampled Japanese instruments, but they're actually very deeply sampled, high quality recordings from an actual, Japanese koto performer. I also have one for shamisen, and
so now we understand, I guess, the technical process, but like, what's like the non-technical process? Like in your mind, how do you think of how you want to recreate the feeling of the original theme? Like, in your head, what do you try to get out from each track when it's just from scratch? What do you want to like? What's in your mind? What's going on in your mind?
When I start thinking about arranging a specific track, first I start out by listening to it over and over again. I do have a lot of the themes kind of memorized, but it helps to listen back to them to make sure I'm catching all the little details, counter melodies, instruments that the originals use, things like that. But I also start by thinking about the actual part of the game that the track is taken. The context, exactly. I think of the context in tandem, or even before I start arranging, and try to visualize almost like a movie version of that scene. And so
that's exactly what whenever I'm listening to your tracks, sometimes dude, you don't know how crazy I am. Let's say I'm listening to the Kanto Wild Battle theme that you orchestrated. I'm pretending like I'm throwing my Pokeball. I'm looking around, like I'm pretending like my Pokemon are flying. Like while I'm walking through the forest, I'm pretending like my Pokemon are flying through the forest, just battling it out. So and it works. It feels like an actual like music a film score.
And I try to time it too so that it fits some of the images in my head. So I take that exact approach, try to think of it as a film score, and even though I don't have actual visuals physically in front of me to dictate, the timing and the feeling, I have a lot of that in my head that I've kind of just built from my imagination and expanding on my experience playing the games.
Yes. I mean, it's glad to hear that you're doing exactly what I would want you to do.
Yeah, it was one of the tracks that I worked on recently was Lake of Rage, and that was so much fun. I really felt connected to that track specifically because it's such a huge part of the original games, the original story of Gold and Silver, where you go to the Lake of Rage and you find out Team Rocket is up to no good, making trouble in the neighborhood. And forcing all of the Magikarp to evolve into angry Gyarados. So I was kind of with that in mind, I was approaching the track from like the standpoint of a trainer who's just discovered this massive lake in the middle of a giant valley, and trying to bring out the majesty of that landscape, while also trying to inject a little bit of mystery and intrigue right at the end to lead into the infiltration of Team Rocket's hideout.
Oh, that's smart. I mean, speaking of other fan projects, I mean, technically this is not a fan project, but like, what are your thoughts of like Symphonic Evolutions? Just other
Symphonic Evolutions is fantastic. I had the pleasure of going twice, actually, here in Seattle.
You lucky boy.
Yeah, I realize some people don't get to go out to these things if they're not in a major city. So it was a twice in a lifetime opportunity. But yeah, no, I'm actually good friends with one of the producers for the show,
wow.
Jaron Moore, who is an incredible human being. He's truly a visionary for video game concerts. He also produced Legend of Zelda: Symphony of the Goddesses.
Oh yeah. I mean, you already talked about this, but like, what do you love about Johto music in particular, other than the fact that like nostalgia?
It's, for me, the music of Johto is really magical. I think because the composition started becoming more complex after Red and Blue. So you can hear a lot of really, really pretty writing from Masuda-san and Ichinose-san, especially Ichinose, because his compositions are fantastic. I sang fantastic a lot. Ichinose-san,
amazing.
Yes, his compositions are amazing. He brings a kind of romantic era vibe to a lot of the tracks. There's some chromaticism, some like new harmonies, new things we haven't heard in the Red and Blue soundtrack.
Yeah.
At least at the time when Gold and Silver came out, that even with the hardware restrictions of the Game Boy Color, he was able to write really beautiful music with just 3 chiptune voices. And from a non-technical standpoint, I should also say I really love the music of Gold and Silver because it actually sounds nostalgic too, not just like I'm nostalgic for the music, but there's something about the harmonies and the melodies that just sound so comforting and warm, especially the town themes, and you feel right at home in the game. And then when the battle tunes kick in, they're Masuda-san is an incredible writer of battle themes, and they're always intense and fast-paced.
First, you're preaching to the choir. Second, here's the thing. So I actually never played Gold or Silver or Crystal. I played Heartgold and Soulsilver not when they came out, like 3-4 years after they came out. So Johto is actually technically not the least nostalgic, but like I played it once actually, compared to all the other Pokemon games. I played it the least. But I totally agree with you that the music is somehow nostalgic to me. It's weird. I don't understand how it works. It's not like I don't have any personal attachment to Johto, but like all the music is nostalgic to me. It makes no sense.
It's just the style that it's written in. They are a master of making you feel like you're living in the Johto region. And I feel like they do that in every subsequent generation as well, to an extent. But for me, Johto is super special.
Other than Johto, what's your next? Other than Johto, maybe even Kanto, if you're gonna say that. Although I don't know if you would. What's your second favorite? Not album, but like soundtrack.
I would say I was really floored in a good way by the Black and White soundtrack.
Oh, so glad to hear that, man.
I love the Unova region, and the music there is also super memorable. And I also really like that with Black and White, they had a lot more cinematic moments and cutscene type things.
Yeah, so the first one was just a lot of cutscenes, and they really went all out in those too.
Yeah, and a really riveting plot, in my opinion, and that was evident in the soundtrack as well, like En's Castle and all of his related themes, everything related to En. I just love all of those themes. I mean, I wrote an En medley
for a
couple teams, so
I'm really glad you said Unova then. I think it's at least laziest soundtrack. Everything has a different theme, and just like they really tried their hardest. Do you have future plans once this thing comes out and is this the most successful thing in the world? Do you plan on continuing? Maybe continuing Hoenn Summer or moving on to Sinnoh? I don't know.
I think it would be really cool to tackle more music from other generations. I've been sort of stuck in the Gen 1 through 3 area for a while, so doing more Sinnoh or more Unova, honestly, would be.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if you skipped to Unova, although I love Sinnoh. I love all the soundtracks, and
I do too.
Each soundtrack, people always are like, oh, this is my favorite soundtrack, everything else sucks. Each soundtrack is unique and has a reason to love it. Well, then I guess this is the time I would reach out to people watching right now. Guys, it would mean a lot to me personally as well. Obviously, it would mean a lot to Braxton, but it would mean a lot to me if like you guys considered at least checking out the Kickstarter, buying the album once it comes out, even if you don't donate to the Kickstarter. But like, if you do, if you're a big fan of Pokemon music, if you like, don't just go donate just because I'm telling you. Do it if you want to, and if you enjoy Pokemon music as well as Braxton's previous works, which I'm sure you've heard. Just please go check it out. It's in the description. Hopefully it'll be annotated in the video. And I'm gonna be tweeting about it as well. I'll put it on my Facebook page too. I'm also gonna I'm releasing a Patreon soon. I don't know. Maybe I'll put it there. I don't know if that's a thing.
I super appreciate all of your shout outs and your help in getting the word out to people. It really means a lot to me, man.
I mean, I want the album to be as good as you described it. So
yeah, I also want it to be as good as it can possibly be, because I've been dreaming of making this album for years.
Yeah,
it would be really cool to realize it in this really special way.
Well, once again, like, Pokemon music is the reason also your whole album and just other creators is the reason I love Pokemon way more than I would have if I didn't listen to the music. It's the reason this channel exists, actually.
Oh my god. That's wow.
So technically, yeah, Braxton created this channel. If Pokemon
I am the true Greens.
No, you're True Green 6.
Oh man. No, that means I've done my job, in spreading love for the Pokemon game's music. It's so I'm really happy that it had such a huge impact on you. Music really is half of the experience and really draws you into the world of Pokemon, and the way that the composers thought carefully about each composition for each town, each battle, really feels unique to that area of the game, and so it always brings back really fond memories of playing those moments myself.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna move on to, you guys are gonna love this. It's a preview, an exclusive preview. That's why I'm gonna put exclusive in the title of this track that you're gonna hear. I'm not gonna spoil it, actually. So enjoy. Thank you for being here, Braxton.
Thank you for having me, Ron.
It was my pleasure, and it was pretty easy. All I had to do was just Skype call with you, so it wasn't hard work.
I didn't have to get changed. I didn't have to wear pants.
Exactly.
I am wearing pants, just for the record.
That's how we're gonna end it.
Oh gosh.
I'm serious. That's actually how we're gonna end it.
Fine.